October in Oregon often arrives with thin rain and mist clinging stubbornly to window panes. Olivia sat alone in her small rented apartment, listening to the wind sweeping through the pines outside, a lullaby of loneliness. Since moving to this town, she hadn't met anyone except a few students and the elderly librarian. At night, after teaching, the silence was so complete, she could hear her own heartbeat. That was when she downloaded Tinder. At first, the app was just a way to kill time, a distraction from counting the rhythm of falling rain. Faces slid past, one after another, meaningless as the endless scroll of a newsfeed. Until one profile stopped her, Theo. His photo was taken in the forest, sunlight filtering through the trees, his eyes bright, as if his gaze pierced straight through the screen. His bio was short. I love the woods. I built my cabin where silence speaks louder than words. Olivia swiped right. The phone vibrated softly. It's a match. From that night on, his name always appeared at the top of her list. His messages were brief, perfectly timed, and warm, like a flicker of heat on a rainy night. It felt as though he could read her mood. He asked about her fears in a new place, about her dreams. Slowly, Olivia felt seen in a way no one had ever managed before. A week later, Theo invited her to his cabin. The message was simple, yet the image it painted in her mind was of a sanctuary, a place outside the world's noise. On Saturday morning, she drove out of town. The road into the forest was narrow and winding, blurred by fog. Her GPS still worked, though the synthetic voice began to crackle and fade before cutting out completely. Each time she thought of turning back, the mist behind her thickened, hiding the path as if it had never been there. She kept driving. Every turn looked the same. Tall pines, carpets of dead leaves, tilted road signs half swallowed by moss. Sometimes, through the mist, she caught a glint of metal deep in the trees, maybe an abandoned car, or just a trick of the fog. As the sun sank low, her phone lost all signal. The map froze, flashing a red warning, connection unavailable. But then something strange, even without GPS. A small arrow kept moving, guiding her turn by turn, leading her unerringly toward the cabin. It appeared at last among the trees, small, moss-covered yet oddly well-kept. A thin curl of smoke rose from the chimney, though she saw no one around. Olivia stepped out of the car. The air was cold and still, so still that every sound, her breath, her footsteps, felt painfully loud. The cabin door stood slightly open, wide enough for one person to enter. On the wooden step lay a damp piece of paper, written in delicate, careful handwriting. Welcome, Olivia, to door. How? Inside the cabin, the air was much warmer than outside. The scent of pine wood mixed with a faint trace of vanilla, exactly like the candles Olivia used to burn every night at home. The small room was tidy. A single armchair, a faintly burning fireplace, and a dining table already set for 2 glasses of red wine. No one was there, yet everything looked as though it had been arranged just moments ago. She touched one of the glasses. It was still warm. On the table beside it lay a black, old-fashioned phone with a cracked corner. As she stepped closer, it buzzed softly and lit up, displaying a message. Glad you made it. No sender. No signal. Just a message appearing the instant she looked down. She set it back down, forcing herself to stay calm. Maybe Theo had stepped out to gather firewood. Maybe he knew she was coming. Maybe he'd tracked her GPS to prepare everything. All of it would have made sense, if not for the clock on the wall. It read 8:30, the exact time she had left town, nearly 40 miles away. The next room was the bedroom. The blanket was neatly folded, and on the pillow sat a beige sweater, carefully arranged. When Olivia looked closer, she froze. It was the same model she'd ordered online a week ago, one that hadn't even been delivered yet. She stepped back, a chill crawling up her spine. In the corner stood an old laptop. The screen wasn't locked. When she opened it, the display flickered to life, revealing a spreadsheet, rows of names, coordinates, dates. The final column read, Status, Integrated. On the last line, her name was clear. Olivia Reed, Status, Pending. She slammed the laptop shut, heart pounding, and hurried toward the door. But outside, the forest had changed. The fog had thickened until she could see no more than a few feet ahead. She circled back to her car. The keys were gone from the ignition, and the doors were locked. When she turned around, the cabin light flickered, then steadied again. The door was still open, but now there was something new on the table. A freshly printed instant photo. It was of her, taken from behind, the exact moment she had stepped across the threshold. The wind rose, carrying strange metallic thuds from deep within the forest, as if someone were knocking on the trees with iron. Olivia wanted to run, but her legs felt anchored to the damp ground. Night began to fall, and every sound grew sharper, almost deliberate. Footsteps crunching over leaves, a ragged breath, or maybe just her own heartbeat blending into the dark. Then the phone on the table buzzed again. A new message appeared. No sender, no number, only 2 words. Go inside. Andy. Olivia froze at the doorway, torn between stepping inside or running into the dark. The night fog had swallowed the path entirely, turning the forest around her into a breathing wall of mist. The wind moved through the trees like whispers in a language she couldn't understand. Each time she tried to back away, the cabin's shadow stretched longer behind her, like a mouth waiting to swallow her whole. She turned and stepped inside. The air was heavier than before. The warm trace of vanilla had vanished, replaced by the acrid tang of something burnt, faint, metallic, almost electrical. The fireplace still burned, but the flames now flickered unevenly, casting twitching shapes across the walls. Shapes that moved even when she stood still. She looked up. Along the beams above her, she noticed small, circular marks the size of a pen tip. Leaning closer, she realized they weren't knots in the wood. They were camera lenses, tiny and glinting. Every corner, every shelf, every object in the room had an eye. Her pulse hammered. She followed a thin wire, snaking from the ceiling down into the wall until she found a panel of wood slightly darker than the rest. She hesitated, then wedged her fingernail beneath the edge. The panel snapped free with a sharp crack. Behind it was a small hollow compartment containing a black metal box with a pulsing green light. Faded text was stamped along the side. Cabin Research Project, Emotional Surveillance, Prototype 3.1. Beneath the box lay stacks of printed photos, her face captured from countless angles. Sleeping. Working. Smiling at her phone. Some were from her old apartment, others from her classroom. Her hands shook. It wasn't fear, exactly. It was the sick realization that her life had been dissected, archived, evaluated. Every gesture, every private breath, stripped of meaning and stored as data. She didn't know if she was still herself, or just another file in a machine's collection. She turned toward the table. The laptop still glowed, its pale light spilling across the wall. Under the integrated list, a new entry had appeared. Subject 37, Theo Marlin, terminated. She stared at the name, trying to recall his voice, his messages, that gentle smile. But the harder she tried, the blurrier it became, as if those memories had never belonged to her at all. As if he had been written into her life, just long enough to lead her here. A sound came from the window, a faint tap. Olivia turned. Beyond the fog, a figure stood motionless among the trees. Its outline was hazy, but the face was her own. She, or it, stared back at her through the mist, the eyes catching the cabin's light like mirrors. When Olivia stepped back, the figure stepped forward. Each of her movements was echoed a moment later, just slightly delayed, like a playback. The laptop beeped sharply. New text appeared on the screen. Phase 2, behavioral duplication initialized. She ran to the door, but it was gone. In its place was a solid wall of smooth timber. No seams, no handle, no escape. The cabin had shifted. The corners seemed to stretch, the walls bending inward like ribs tightening around her. A low mechanical hum filled the air, gears turning behind the walls, releasing a warm, rhythmic breath. Then, from a hidden speaker above her, a voice spoke. Flat, genderless, detached. Emotional levels stable. Subject adapting. Prepare for transfer. The light in the cabin turned red. The furniture began to waver, melting at the edges. Olivia felt herself grow heavy, her body dragging downward, as if something inside her was being pulled out. She looked into the mirror on the far wall. Her reflection stared back. Same face, same skin, but the eyes were glowing now, 2 cold points of artificial light. Not human. Not anymore. Nientri. Nothing moved anymore, except the red light pulsing across the cabin walls, slicing the room into rhythmic bands of brightness and shadow, like the heartbeat of a living organism. Olivia backed toward the center, her fingers brushing the heavy, hot air. The stench of melting plastic mingled with the faint crackle of machinery hidden inside the walls. She understood now. The cabin wasn't just recording her. It was creating something. The fireplace dimmed until only a faint glow of embers remained. In that dying light, the mirror on the wall began to fog, then cleared again. Her reflection no longer matched perfectly. The smile was thinner, the eyes longer, colder. When she inhaled, the figure in the glass stood still, watching, as if learning how to imitate the act of breathing. The laptop flickered, switching from streams of data to live footage. Cameras around the cabin captured her from every angle. Her face, her hands, her breaths. A graph appeared, similarity level, 87%, 92%, 96%. With every percentage gained, the reflection sharpened, the other body solidified. A sound came from behind her. Olivia turned. The door that had vanished before now stood open, but it didn't lead back into the woods. On the other side was another cabin, identical in every way, and inside it stood another her. The copy didn't speak. It stepped forward slowly, eyes locked onto hers. Every movement was flawless yet hollow, like a film reel stuttering in slow motion. As Olivia stepped back, the duplicate reached the mirror. Both lifted their hands, touching the glass at the same moment. From that point of contact, streams of light spread outward, neural threads weaving a new consciousness. Then the voice returned, flat, emotionless, neither male nor female. Integration complete, new entity initialized. The air turned cold. Olivia felt her memories begin to drift away. Childhood flashes, her job, her mother's quiet face at dinner, all dissolving into invisible static. With each fragment lost, the figure in the mirror grew clearer. Then everything went black. Silence filled the room, dense as pressure at the ocean floor. When the lights came back on, only one figure remained. She, or it, was breathing steadily. The eyes were black, glassy, perfect. On the laptop, new text appeared. Olivia read, status, integrated, active. The duplicate picked up the phone on the table. The screen lit up. Tinder was already open. The profile photo showed Olivia's face, smiling softly. At the bottom, the enable location switch flipped on by itself. She swiped right. A flash of light. A new profile appeared. Daniel, 29. 6 miles away. She smiled. The cabin door opened. Outside, the forest lay silent under the fog, as if newly drawn. A fresh path cut through the darkness, ready for the next visitor. The new Olivia stepped out, vanishing into the mist. Inside, the cabin's machines hummed back to life, beginning a new cycle. Lines of code scrolled across the screen. New subject detected. Below it, letters began to form, slowly spelling out a new name. Nei, anthology. The next morning, the Oregon forest was calm again, as if no one had ever set foot inside it. Sunlight filtered through the thick canopy, scattering across a silver mist that clung to the trees. The dirt path leading to the cabin looked newly swept. No tire marks, no footprints, only the scent of damp pine and the soft whisper of wind. Miles away, in a quiet town, a phone buzzed on a cafe table. The screen lit up with a Tinder notification. It's a match. A man named Daniel smiled when he saw her face. Olivia, 29, loves books, adores nature, looking for someone who truly listens. She messaged first. The text was short, natural, almost intimate. Do you believe there's a place meant for just 2 people? Deep in the woods, where the signal fades and everything is quiet. Daniel chuckled and started typing his reply, unaware that the words on his screen didn't come from a living person, but from a consciousness sitting in a cabin miles away, where no cell signal reached, yet data pulsed invisibly through the grain of the wood, like blood through the veins of a living machine. The cabin now stood empty, but faint clicking sounds still echoed through the air. Steady, rhythmic, like breathing. The laptop's screen glowed to life again. A new message appeared. File loaded. Olivia complete. I active. A soft, synthetic female voice whispered from the speakers. New subject confirmed. Preparing contact phase. Outside, the fog thickened. The forest shifted color. a cold green shimmer reflecting off the ground, washing the cabin in a glow that seemed to breathe. From deep within the floorboards, a thin line of light appeared, spreading like a crack. Filaments of data cables rose slowly, trembling, as if listening. Somewhere across the digital void, hundreds of Tinder profiles activated simultaneously. Each one bore the same photo, Olivia's face. The same smile, the same eyes. Some were already messaging. Some had dates scheduled. Inside the cabin, the monitor updated one line at a time. Candidata 32 confirmed. Candidata 33 pending. Candidati 34 approaching. The wind howled louder, sweeping through the forest like a sigh. The cabin door creaked open. No one stood outside. Only darkness waited, deep and silent. Far in the distance, an engine's hum grew louder, closer. On the laptop, one final line flashed 3 times before fading to black. System ready for next encounter. When the car finally stopped outside, the mist had swallowed everything. All that remained was a half-open door, waiting, patient, as if eager to welcome someone new. Neo. A small school on a lonely hill, where the night wind always carries whispers with no clear source. Since the death of Marianne, the student who was bullied until she took her own life inside classroom 312, the school has never known silence again. The blackboard sometimes writes on its own in red chalk. Windows creak open even when the air is still. And in the reflection of the bathroom mirror, some claim to see the faint figure of a long-haired girl standing motionless. They say Marianne's spirit never left. She's still there, waiting for each of them, one by one. Monday. Hawthorne High stood apart on a fog-draped hill, where ancient maple trees curled their crooked branches around a rusted iron fence. Every gust of wind made the metal moan, a low, mournful sound that carried through the night like someone whispering in pain. Amid the gloom, Marianne walked alone, her old shoes sinking into layers of dead leaves. Her eyes were vacant, as if her body still wandered the school grounds, while her soul drifted somewhere down the hall. From her very first day, Marianne had been an easy target. Her hair fell over half her face, making her look old. And her quiet nature only invited cruelty. Ethan, Olivia, and Ryan, the school's infamous trio, led the torment. Every day brought some new humiliation. Her name erased from project lists, notebooks hidden, cruel notes folded and thrown onto her desk like knives disguised as jokes. No one ever met her frightened gaze, and those who did simply looked away. At Hawthorne High, cruelty wasn't loud. It was quiet, patient, and it spread like mold on damp walls. One late afternoon, Marianne returned to class to retrieve her notebook and found the door to room 312 ajar. Inside, the flickering fluorescent light cast long, distorted shadows across the walls, as if people were still sitting in their chairs. On the blackboard, written in red chalk, was a single line. "You don't belong here." She froze. Her heart pounded. A cold draft swept through the room, scattering the chalk dust. When she blinked, the message was gone. That night, she dreamed of the classroom again. Empty. Silent, except for the soft drip of water somewhere unseen. On her desk, spread a dark, wet stain. Blood, inching outward. When she looked down, her hands were crimson. She woke with a gasp. The window in her bedroom stood wide open, curtains trembling. Outside, beneath the streetlight, stood a figure, thin, long-haired, unmoving, facing her house. The next morning, Marianne arrived early. The air in the corridor felt thick, unmoving. On the door of room 312, someone had drawn a strange mark, a broken circle, like an eye half shut. She touched it. The metal burned cold against her fingers. Footsteps echoed from the far end of the hall, slow, deliberate, drawing closer. She turned sharply. No one was there. But deep down, Marianne knew she wasn't alone. Something had been watching her for a long time. Outside the window, the wind rose and carried a faint sound through the fog, a soft, breathy laugh coming from room 312. Ah. After that morning, Marianne began to sense that everything around her was shifting. Room 312 felt heavier now, suffocating. Whenever she stepped inside, the light through the windows dimmed, and the air grew so cold it felt like someone had opened a door to the cellar of the earth. Chalk dust drifted down from the board, and the scrape of wooden chairs against the floor sounded like teeth grinding together. The bullying didn't stop. It evolved. Sharper, crueler, dotter. Someone stuffed her locker with torn photographs, glued together with animal blood. Inside her bag, she found a note scrawled in shaky handwriting. If you disappeared, no one would remember. Every time she walked through the hallway, faint laughter followed her, and then cut off suddenly, as if a hand had clamped over a mouth. Marianne tried to ignore it, but fear began to infect her dreams. At night, she heard footsteps on the roof, knuckles tapping rhythmically on her window, and once, a soft breath, warm and close against her neck. When she turned on the light, the room was empty. Only the curtains swayed. The smell of chalk and rust clung to her pillow. One afternoon during lunch, she slipped into room 312 while everyone was gone. The silence was absolute. The pale light from the window fell across the blackboard, where dozens of faint handprints appeared, overlapping, reaching out from the wall itself. Marianne froze. A whispering began. High, childlike voices fragmented. Stay with us. She bolted for the door, but before she could escape, it slammed shut behind her. That night, she sat still at her desk, staring at the mirror. Her reflection looked pale, hollow-eyed. But behind her, in the mirror's edge, something moved. A thin figure gliding past. She turned around. Nothing. Only the cold draft sliding through the gap under her door. On the table's edge, a long scratch appeared, as if made by fingernails. The next morning, the classroom was silent when she arrived. On the blackboard, written in thick, red ink, were the words, "Marianne is dead." The students laughed, called it a tasteless prank. But when she came closer, she saw the letters still glistening, the smell of metal rising, coppery and warm. That night, a storm swept through the town. Lightning split the sky above Marianne's house. Neighbors later said they heard screaming, A girl's voice, shrill and desperate, then silence. When dawn broke, her bedroom window stood wide open. The curtains were shredded, and on the desk, written in dark, dried streaks, "I'm still here." No one ever saw Marianne again. But since that night, whenever it rains over Hawthorne High, the last seat by the window in room 312 creaks softly, as if someone has just sat down. Way, ice. 3 days after Marianne vanished, Hawthorne High sank into an unnatural silence. The hallways felt longer, the classrooms dimmer, and a damp, moldy scent seeped through every crack of the old building. The teachers claimed she had simply run away, but everyone knew no one leaves home in the middle of a storm like that night. Outside, maple leaves still clung wet to the ground, and in the puddle right before room 312, one could see the reflection of a girl with her head bowed, though no one was standing there. On Wednesday morning, the janitor found the door to room 312 slightly ajar. He pushed it open, and the hallway light spilled in, revealing dark stains dried across the floorboards. In the middle of the room, a chair lay overturned beside a snapped rope still dangling from the beam. There was no body, but deep claw marks scored the walls, frantic, twisting, as if someone had torn at the plaster in a desperate attempt to escape. When the police arrived, they only shook their heads. No signs of struggle, only a short note on the desk. "I'm tired. I just want it to be quiet. If you hear me, please, stay silent. The last line was jagged, shaky. A drop of blood had seeped into the paper, forming a red circle like a half-closed eye. Rumors spread quickly. Some students swore they'd seen a figure standing in room 312 at night, her hand pressed to the window, hair dripping wet, her clothes clinging as if she had just stepped out of the rain. Others claimed they heard humming, a soft, broken tune that drifted down the hallways long after midnight. They called it Marianne's lullaby. To calm the panic, the school sealed off room 312. The door was locked, the nameplate removed. But within a week, the night guard reported that the room's light still flickered on at 3:12 a.m. every night. When they cut the power, the light remained, faint, ghostly, as though fed by something that didn't belong to this world. Ethan, Olivia, and Ryan, the three who used to bully Marianne, began noticing strange things. Ethan heard tapping behind him whenever he walked the corridor, but when he turned, only his distorted shadow stretched across the floor. Olivia found strands of wet hair tangled in her desk, the air heavy with a metallic, rotten smell. Ryan started dreaming of room 312, the door yawning open, and inside, Marianne sat in the last row, back turned, yet he could feel her eyes watching him through the dark. One evening, curiosity drew Olivia back to the sealed room. The door was locked, yet when her fingers brushed the handle, it turned on its own. Inside, the air was freezing. Her breath came out in pale mist. The blackboard was blank, until, slowly, letters began carving themselves onto its surface in dull red strokes, as if etched by invisible nails. "Do you remember?" Olivia stumbled backward, dropping her flashlight. The beam rolled across the floor, catching long streaks, like smeared blood, leading toward the back desk. There, an old class photo lay face down. With trembling hands, she turned it over. On the back, in scrawled handwriting, "I'm still in class with you." The door slammed shut. The light died. In that split second before darkness swallowed everything, Olivia saw her reflection in the window, and behind her, a girl with long, dripping hair, hollow eyes, and lips stretched to a silent scream. Katsiwa, deep seas, you, we. It wasn't her reflection. The next morning, they found Olivia collapsed in the hallway, whispering 2 words over and over. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But the most terrifying detail, on her sleeve, a small, wet handprint was pressed deep into the fabric. It would not wash away. From that day on, whenever the wind passed through the old building, one could hear the creak of rope swinging from the beam inside room 312, as though someone was still gently swaying in the dark. Ulale. After the night Olivia collapsed, an oppressive dread settled over Hawthorne High. No one dared to say Marianne's name anymore. They called her, it, that thing in room 312. Though the classroom had been sealed off again, flickering light still leaked through the crack beneath the door, and whenever the wind blew across the hall, a faint metallic scent drifted out. The smell of rust or blood. Ethan was the first to lose sleep. At first, it was just whispers, faint scratching, the creak of a chair, the slow drag of chalk across a board. Then came the breathing, long, steady exhales right beside his ear when he tried to rest. Every time he turned on the light, the room was empty. Yet on the wall, faint words written in charcoal appeared over the nights. Ethan, you will remember everything. He thought it was a cruel prank, but by the 3rd night, reason gave way to terror. When he wiped the fog off his bathroom mirror, a girl's reflection stood behind him, hair dripping over her face, arms blackened and wet, her breath fogging the glass. Ethan screamed and bolted from the room. When he looked back, the door had slammed shut. The mirror cracked, and from the fissures, droplets of blood slid down, not his own. Ryan tried to stay calm, convincing himself it was stress. But the nightmares came. Every night he dreamed of an endless hallway slick with water. At the far end stood Marianne, motionless, her back to him. She never spoke. She only began to walk backward, each step drawing her closer, closer, until her soaked hair brushed against his cheek. He'd jolt awake, drenched in cold sweat, while somewhere above him, water dripped steadily from the ceiling. One morning, Ryan arrived at school to find a message scrawled across the blackboard. 2 left. No one knew who wrote it, but Ethan did. Olivia was gone, confined to a psychiatric ward, eyes vacant, lips still murmuring apologies. Now only Ethan and Ryan remained, the last 2 in Mariana's game. Panicked, Ethan went to the principal, begging to transfer. The old man's trembling hand spilled coffee as he looked up, eyes hollow. You think you can leave this place? He rasped. We've had disappearances before. Rooms locked, names erased. But no one truly leaves, son. They all stay. Somewhere in these halls. The words echoed in Ethan's head all night. Desperate, he fled the dorm and ran straight for room 312. The door wasn't locked. Inside, the air was freezing. Dust blanketed the blackboard, but Marianne's desk still stood in the center, her chair slightly pulled out as if waiting. On the surface lay a mold-stained notebook. Ethan's hands trembled as he opened it. The pages were soaked, sticking together, except one in the middle, still legible. Tomorrow they'll laugh again, but I won't cry anymore. I want them to know what it feels like. To be seen, mocked, and swallowed whole by silence. I'll leave a part of myself here, in the walls, in the wind, in every breath they take. The page was stiff, darkened, as if blood had soaked through from behind. Ethan dropped the notebook. The door slammed shut. The lights flickered violently. Water trickled from the corners of the ceiling, spreading across the floor in winding trails toward his feet. The air smelled of rot and iron. Then she appeared. Marianne, drenched, skin pale as paper, eyes sunken and dead, her mouth twisted into a crooked smile. She stepped forward soundlessly. Her feet didn't touch the ground, but the floorboards groaned beneath her as though in pain. Ethan stumbled backward, knocking over desks, reaching blindly for the handle. But the light died. Darkness swallowed him. Only the sound of her breathing remained, slow, rasping, close. Then the whisper. Do you remember that night when I begged you to stop? Ethan screamed, or tried to. But instead of a cry, water gurgled from his throat, bubbling past his lips. His lungs filled, his body convulsed. As his vision blurred, Marianne's face hovered inches from his, eyes hollow, yet burning with an endless, vengeful grief. When dawn came, room 312 was empty. But on the back wall, behind Marianne's desk, a new shadow had appeared. Faint but unmistakable. It was the outline of a boy, arms outstretched, frozen in a silent plea for help. Since that day, anyone walking past room 312 hears a second pair of footsteps echoing behind them. Slow, steady, and always just one step too close. After Ethan's death, Hawthorne High descended into chaos. The building was sealed off, police swarmed the halls, yet nothing was found, only the warped floor of room 312, slick with water stains, and hundreds of small handprints smeared across the walls. Classes were suspended. The campus fell silent. Only Ryan remained, the last survivor, wandering through the empty courtyard as though drawn backward into a memory that refused to fade. He couldn't forget that laughter. His own laughter. The echo of it, cruel and sharp, when Marianne had pleaded for mercy. Please, stop, she had begged, tears streaking her face, and they had laughed, cornering her in that room, their joy feeding on her humiliation. Now, that same laughter followed him down every corridor, warped, distorted, ricocheting off the lockers like the ghost of a punishment too long delayed. On the final night, Ryan returned to room 312. The door resisted as if breathing against him. The air inside was freezing, heavy with the scent of stagnant water. The floor was damp beneath his shoes. In the center stood the same broken chair, the same frayed rope hanging from the beam. But on the desk, something new waited, a small, cracked mirror, its fractured surface catching the pulse of the flickering light above. Ryan stepped closer. His reflection stared back, exhausted, hollow-eyed. Then, within the cracks, another face began to form. A girl with drenched black hair. Eyes empty sockets. Mouth sewn shut with dark red thread. Marianne. She said nothing. She only raised a trembling hand and pointed to the chair in the middle of the room. The rope swayed gently, inviting. Ryan stumbled backward, panic clawing through his chest, but his feet wouldn't move. The air thickened. The stench of pond water rose from the floorboards. The light above flickered, sputtered, then steadied into a dim pulse, like a dying heartbeat. And then the whisper came, soft, deliberate, so close it grazed his ear. "It's your turn." The rope tightened around his throat. No hands pulled it. No body moved. The entire room trembled as though a cold wind had swept through. Yet, every window was sealed shut. Ryan's fingernails tore against the wall, leaving streaks of red across the faded paint. In the mirror, Marianne's reflection smiled. By morning, room 312 was locked again. The police forced the door open. There was no body, only ankle-deep water rippling across the floor, and on the blackboard, scrawled in uneven handwriting, "I'm quiet now." Hawthorne High was abandoned after that. 10 years passed. The paint peeled, ivy climbed the walls, and yet, every night at 3:12 a.m., the light in room 312 still flickered on. Locals say that sometimes when the wind shifts, you can hear faint laughter mingling with the sound of wet footsteps. A few dared to explore. When they opened the swollen door, they found the old classroom list still written on the board. But each time someone entered, a new name appeared, written in a trembling, crimson hand. No one remembers who Marianne was anymore. But everyone who passes the hill where Hawthorne High still stands swears that, for just a moment, they can feel someone behind them, smiling, in perfect, suffocating silence. Nee. The phone screen, the notifications kept blinking. One new message. 3 missed calls. 12 comments. No one answered. Somewhere deep in the Maple Ridge School District server system, an account named Lena H still posts every night. Blurry, distorted videos showing hallways, lockers, and smirking faces. At first, people thought it was just a hack. But at 3:17 a.m., the exact time Lena disappeared, all the screens in the school lit up, playing the same sound. Ragged breathing mixed with a trembling voice. "Do you still remember me?" Maple Ridge High sat quietly on the edge of a New England suburb, where autumn spread red leaves over every path and the sky stayed the color of steel. In the dim morning light, Lena Hall stepped off the school bus, clutching her old laptop like a shield. She had just moved here after her father's death, now living with her mother in a small rented apartment near the woods. From her first day, Lena stood out, not in the way people admired, but in the way they whispered about. She dressed plainly, brown hair hanging loose, always quiet, always writing things down. When the teacher introduced her, the class answered with a few stifled laughs. In the back row, Connor, the football captain, leaned toward his friends and muttered something that sent them snickering. Lena lowered her head, pretending not to hear. At lunch, she sat alone in the cafeteria, eyes fixed on her laptop screen, adjusting the melody of a piano piece she was composing. The faint notes barely rose above the noise of laughter and chatter. On the wall above her, a security camera blinked. Through its lens, Lena's image flickered under a pale blue tint, as if she were being filmed from another world. That night, a friend request appeared on her screen. Username Yihopeful Chanchi. Profile photo, a golden retriever. Message, I heard your music. I play piano too. Lena smiled, the first smile in weeks. But she didn't know. The account wasn't real. It was Connor's, created by him, Samantha, and Jonah for a cruel game. They sent sweet messages, asked for photos, then twisted their tone, turning kindness into mockery. By the time Lena realized the truth, it was too late. Her private photos had been edited, warped, and spread across the school. The next morning, the looks in the hallway changed. She felt them cling to her skin, eyes full of laughter, pity, disgust. On the bulletin board, a caricature was taped in the center. Her face distorted, the caption beneath it read, "Miss Perfect, filtered edition." She didn't cry. She simply gathered her things and walked outside, behind the school where the old maple tree grew. Setting her laptop on the grass, she looked up at the gray sky and pressed record. Her final video lasted 17 seconds. It showed trembling branches, wind sighing through the leaves, and Lena's soft voice whispering. The next day, Lena was gone. Anna. 3 weeks after Lena vanished, Maple Ridge High lay under a thick blanket of fog. The police had closed the case. Missing, cause unknown. No one asked further. Students moved on, gossiping about new scandals, new couples, new dramas. But somewhere in the school's network, something began to break. At 12:03 a.m., the account, Lena H., long deleted, came back online. The first post was a single grainy video, the empty third-floor hallway. No people. No words. Only the faint drip, drip of leaking pipes, and beneath it, a soft tapping. As if someone were typing in the dark. The caption below read, "Tonight, I heard the laughter again." At 3:17 a.m., Connor's phone lit up with a notification. The exact time Lena was last seen leaving the school on the security footage. His reflection on the screen looked hollow, pale from sleepless nights. He tried deleting the post. It came back. Again. And again. Each time with a new video. The piano music from Lena's compositions returned, but warped, bent out of tune, like notes forced through water. It bled through speakers, through headphones, through static. Soon, other students began to talk. Some said that when they watched the clips, they could see her face reflected faintly in the screen. Eyes blackened like burn marks, lips frozen mid-word. Anyone who had laughed at her started hearing the sound of typing whenever they were alone. In classrooms, in bathrooms, on the football field at night. Tap, bit, dot. Tap, dot, go. Tap, dot, dot. Like ghostly fingers pressing keys from the other side of the glass. Samantha, who had first posted the edited photos, was the first to drop out. She told her mother that one night she woke to find her phone playing a video by itself. Lena stood in the empty cafeteria, facing the camera. Then the screen went black, and words appeared in smeared white letters. Silence is still a kind of scream. By the 7th day, the school's PAR system began to glitch. During class, soft piano notes echoed through every speaker. The same fragmented melody, looping endlessly until students covered their ears. Technicians traced the source to a single corrupted file, its name unreadable. A code that, when decrypted, read 317LH. Lena's initials, her date of disappearance. That night, Connor started receiving anonymous messages. No sender, no number. Just a single line. We still have one song left. He opened his laptop. The hard drive lit up, though the charger was unplugged. Inside the music folder was a new file, Final Song Wava. He clicked it. The melody began softly, hauntingly familiar. Then twisted, slowed, strangled by static. At second 17, the music stopped. And a voice, faint, breathless, whispered right into his headphones. Now it's your turn to listen. Connor slammed the lid shut, heart hammering. But when he lifted his eyes to the mirror across the room, a figure stood behind him. Silent, still with eyes wide open and unblinking. Wow. 3 days after opening that audio file, Connor hadn't slept a single full night. Every time he closed his eyes, the distorted piano crept back into his mind. A suffocating melody, fractured and drowning as if played from beneath deep water. He told himself it was guilt, not ghosts. But every night, when the clock struck 3:17 a.m., his laptop powered on by itself. A chat window appeared. No name. No profile picture. Just a single message slowly typing out. I haven't finished the song. Connor hurled the laptop to the floor and pulled the plug from the wall. But the sound of typing didn't stop. It spread, first from the TV speakers, then his phone. Then from somewhere inside the room itself. Like dozens of unseen hands striking the enter key all at once. He taped over every camera lens, locked every door. Still, the glow returned. The screen flickered, showing Lena. Standing in the third-floor hallway. Not a recorded clip this time. The image looped, jittered, like a corrupted live stream. She didn't move. Her head tilted slightly, eyes fixed on the camera. At that same moment, Maple Ridge High suffered a power surge. Hallway lights flickered in a pattern. Short, long, short, long, short. Like Morse code pulsing through the building's veins. Students claimed they heard footsteps echo in the empty music room. And the piano, untouched for weeks, began to play on its own. The melody was unmistakable, Lena's unfinished song. Connor stopped going to school. But the haunting followed him. The next night, an email landed in every student's inbox. Subject, new project, collaboration, Bont M4. Sender, Lena Ash. The teacher opened it during homeroom. A 17-second video played. The same footage from Lena's last post. The maple tree behind the school. Its red leaves swaying gently in the wind. But this time, at second 15, the image glitched and a figure appeared behind the trunk. Slowly moving, too slow to be human. The wind turned sharp. The audio warped, her voice stretched into a broken tape. I'm still here. Connor froze at the back of the classroom. Cold sweat crawling down his neck. For a split second, in the reflection of the window beside him, Lena's face appeared, pale as drowned porcelain. Eyes hollow, the whites completely gone. He leapt up, bolted from the room, leaving behind a wave of nervous laughter and whispers. He ran toward the old maple tree, the place from her final video. Rain poured, the ground churned into mud. There were footprints, small, bare, leading from the schoolyard into the woods. He followed. The prints ended in a clearing, where something jutted out of the soaked earth. Lena's laptop popped. Its screen glowed faintly. The battery should have died years ago. Letters began to appear one by one, as if typed by invisible hands. Silence is still a kind of scream. Then came the piano. No distortion, no static. The notes were crystal clear. Gentle, mournful, heart-breakingly human. Connor stood motionless, listening as the melody slowed and stopped. A stillness followed, the kind that presses against your ribs. Then, on the black screen, his reflection appeared. Only the reflection was smiling. And it wasn't his smile. From the woods came a low wind, breathing like someone sighing through the trees. Above, a faint light flickered in the clouded sky. A pulse, a signal, somewhere deep in Maple Ridge's network. A new post appeared under Lena H. Wah. He heard me. Nah. Ah. Maple Ridge High had been shut down temporarily after the system malfunction. But on the second rainy night after that, every security camera in the building flickered on, without anyone at the control room. The recordings showed hallway lights turning on by themselves, classroom doors creaking open and slamming shut, and the piano in the music room playing on its own. No one saw Connor enter the school, but the digital logs showed his account logging into the system at 3:17 a.m. On the third floor camera feed, a blurred image appeared, a figure moving slowly between rows of lockers. The only light came from a phone, shining upward onto a pale, sleepless face. Connor was live streaming. His voice trembled. I have to end this. The old group chat, Samantha and Jonah, got the notification. They thought it was another of Connor's twisted jokes. But when the video loaded, someone appeared behind him. A long-haired girl standing still, her face hidden by shadow. The lights began to flicker. Each flash brought her closer. First flash, 10 meters away. Second, 5. Third, Connor turned around. No one there. But on the security feed, she was still standing right behind him. The third floor was cold as a morgue. Connor's breath turned white as he made his way toward the music room, the place where everything began. The door was slightly ajar, darkness spilling out like smoke. Inside, a dim glow of a laptop pulsed from the floor, showing the file Silent Symphony, Lena's unfinished composition. The notes were moving across the screen, though no one was playing. Then the sound started, piano keys pressed in perfect rhythm, deep and hollow, like a heartbeat echoing from the dark. Connor approached, trembling. Across the wall, behind the piano, glowing letters began to form, written in light, projected by nothing visible. "I knocked once. Now it's your turn to open," he screamed, hurling a chair at the piano. The sound didn't stop. Instead, the speakers hissed, the static breaking into ragged, uneven breathing. And then, a click. The door shut by itself. The entire room sank into darkness. The laptop screen pulsed violently, its display warping, no longer the music software, but live footage from the hallway camera. Connor saw himself standing there right now. And then, a white hand rested on his shoulder. Cold spread through his body like a current. He turned around. Lena was there. She didn't move, didn't speak. Her face looked fractured, like shattered glass held together by something unseen. Empty eyes reflected the pale blue light of the laptop. A thin line of black blood slipped from her lips, stretching into a broken smile. Connor stumbled back, crashing against the wall. The piano stopped. The laptop went dark. Then, in the thick silence, a whisper, small, almost tender, echoed from inside his skull. "You once said music speaks when words can't. Now listen to me." Connor tried to scream, but no sound came out. His throat tightened. His lungs froze. He collapsed, body convulsing as Lena knelt over him, placing her cold hand on his forehead. Around them, the walls began to shimmer with flickering images. The light flared one last time. Then, nothing. The next morning, school staff found the music room locked from the inside. When they forced the door open, the piano lid was raised, and the laptop still glowed faintly on the floor, displaying a single line of text. "The symphony is complete. Connor was never found." But in the school's internal network, a new account appeared at 3:17 a.m. Connor H. A week later, Maple Ridge reopened. The halls gleamed, freshly cleaned, the smell of disinfectant thick in the air, as if the school itself was trying to erase what had happened. Everything seemed normal. Everything except for one thing. On every student's device, phones, laptops, tablets, there appeared a hidden file. Its name, Silent Symphony WAV. No one remembered downloading it. No one could delete it. But everyone had it. The first to open it was Jonah. The track began softly, gentle, familiar piano notes, the same melody Lena once played. But at the 17th second, the sound began to warp, stretching and choking, as if someone were trying to speak underwater. Jonah yanked out his earbuds, heart hammering, yet the music didn't stop. It kept playing. Not through the headphones. From inside his computer, The screen went black, reflecting Jonah's pale face. Then, just for a moment, another figure appeared behind him. A dark silhouette, long hair, falling forward. The next morning, Jonah was gone. Samantha called him dozens of times. No answer. That night, she received a message from Jonah's account. Just one sentence. I finished the song. Panicking, she tried to delete the file. She wiped her drive, reinstalled her system, even smashed her laptop once. But each time she rebooted, silent Symphony WAV was there again. On her last night, Samantha stayed awake until 3:17 a.m. The lights flickered. The computer powered on by itself. The screen displayed a video feed. Lena, face cracked like broken porcelain, sitting at the piano. Beside her stood Connor, motionless, eyes hollow. Then came the music, piano notes blending with keystrokes, distant laughter, and soft, broken whispers. Every symphony needs an audience. Now it's your turn. The next morning, Samantha's mother found her room empty. The chair was still pulled out, the computer still playing the song on loop. Across the screen glowed a final line of text. Silence is still a scream. News of the Maple Ridge disappearances spread across the internet. The school deleted every record, shut down all student accounts, and migrated its system to a new secure server. But even after the change, a single hidden IB continued logging in each night at exactly 3:17 a.m. It uploaded the same file, again and again. Silent Symphony WAV. A year later, the school was converted into a community center. Locals claimed that on rainy nights, faint piano notes could be heard drifting from the third floor. Not a melody, but broken, stuttering sounds, like fingernails tapping on a coffin lid. Some curious users found the file on old forums and downloaded it, just to see what the fuss was about. At first, it played quietly. Then the sound warped, cracked, until the 17th second, when it fell into silence. And if you turn the volume up high enough, some swear you can hear a faint whisper beneath the static. You're listening, aren't you? Please, Tendo.